Before I start off, I guess I need to be candid and make an ancillary point, which is apart from exploring how the podcasting medium is bringing back, in my opinion, the long lost oral tradition, the reason I'm using Curt Jaimungal specifically to elucidate my point is that, well, I have to admit, I want to look somewhat oracular. Because I really do think Kurt's podcast is going to blow up in the next year or so, and frankly, part of me just wants to ride the wave of his eminent influence. Yeah, I know, it's vain, superficial, and rather unbecoming to use people's names for YouTube views. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm another struggling content creator, and what kind of content creator doesn't want to seek out an audience, eh? But also, jokes aside, in all sincerity, I'm a big fan of Kurt's work, and I think he's the perfect example to be used to demonstrate my points. Because here's what he says about his podcast, The Theories of Everything.
This channel is meant to be more of a... I know, it's strange. It's meant to be more of a community than it is... Well, it's a mission rather than a podcast. And I see that as what separates it. And the mission is explicating toes and advancing toes and furthering our understanding of the universe. It's not a podcast per se like Joe Rogan or even Lex Friedman where they're interested in speaking to people. And I don't mean this in any demeaning way because their podcasts are far, far superior to mine. There's a certain high level at which they operate, and that's because they're interested in many different topics and they're generally interested in conversing with people. Now, I'm not particularly, or this podcast isn't about conversing in that same way. It's more about office hours is one way that I described it. I'm trying to clarify my own thinking. But another is that we have a aim, and the aim is the theory of everything, explicating them, because there are around 200 as far as I can count.
When I came across his content, I found this mission Kurt's own rather captivating, as I've never seen a podcast dedicated to solving a specific problem with a clear-cut telos. And the more I listen to Theories of Everything, I realize for the first time in my life, I've come across a piece of content, other than something written of course, that I couldn't consume passively. I had to be fully present and engaged, take notes, look things up, and sort of do a follow-up on most episodes. Now, this may be an evolution in the medium. I mean, I think most people would agree that one of the salient reasons for the popularity of podcasts is its laissez-faire and kind of free-flowing nature without any explicit structure. But I think what I'd call the Joe Rogan experience model of just chatting doesn't always work, especially when it comes to the topics like those that Curt discusses. So I wanted to make this video and kind of lay down my points as to what I think is going on here. Throughout my life, I was told if you cannot explain something simply, that means you don't truly understand it. Or when it comes to communicating science and philosophy, especially to the general public, it's better to give the gist of some idea. Stick only to something peripheral, that which is mainstream, and keep away from attempting to peel all the layers of a given topic. While I wasn't too fond of this overly reductionistic model of communication, as I found it somewhat unproductive and even sanctimonious at times, I understood and gave credence to why most public intellectuals tended to do this for the sake of practicality. I mean, you can't really expect what took them years and sometimes a lifetime to learn and understand to be communicated in a couple of hours. So I did give the devil his due. However, recently I've even come to push that boundary the more I've found heterodox public intellectuals who tend to dissent from the mainstream. For example, here is one of my favorite thinkers, Eric Weinstein's podcast with Roger Penrose, where Eric elucidated how scientists converse with each other.
I'm not expert in it, and I can't always follow it. So if you're not following everything in today's episode, instead of deciding that the episode has somehow failed you, try to remember that people who are working in mathematics and theoretical physics spend most of their time listening to colleagues completely lost as to what their colleagues are saying. So if you start to feel that you are being left behind by some line of thinking, what we do is, in general, wait to see if another line of thinking opens up that we can try to catch. You're not going to get all of the waves, and in fact, the same thing is happening to me while I'm interviewing Roger. He's not understanding everything I'm saying, I'm not understanding everything he's saying, and in fact, this is normal. So what I would like to do is to instead present you guys with an idea of what science actually sounds like when people are talking from two slightly different perspectives. We spend an awful lot of time simply trying to understand each other. And if that feels a little bit uncomfortable, well, then in fact you're getting a true scientific experience, which is often very different than what you're getting when everything is pre-chewed and spoon-fed.
I don't come from a strictly academic background at all. I'm a software engineer, but finding people like Eric and Curt has made me realize that not everything has to be dumbed down and simplified for the layman. Firstly, because the communicator doesn't have any obligation to do so. And secondly, I think in this oversimplification, a lot of that which is substantive and of sublime importance is unfortunately lost. And if these quote-unquote next generation podcasts like Theories of Everything have shown us one thing, it's that this dialectical process can be scaled and not be kept localized to a university or an academic setting. It can even be opened up to a layman like me. And even though I may not understand most of it, I don't have to be frankly patronized by being given a plain and rather banal version of a complex idea. If I don't understand something, it's my responsibility to go study it. And exposing someone like me to a wide range of ideas provides a great pedagogical prelude. And thankfully, Curt sees this too.
But the whole point of this is that this channel is growing. It's growing. It's extremely flattering that it's growing. It's a rate that I didn't think it would. It far surpasses my expectations for what people are willing to listen to. A 3-hour conversation on meticulous technicalities and intricacies and abstruse mechanics of these different theories and theorists, while simultaneously it's taking a huge toll on me, both physically for sure. I'm exhausted much of the time, and then spiritually, yes, because it's destabilizing to have to entertain many different ideas as to what the heck reality is. The Patreon and the PayPal are huge boons that help me consistently produce podcasts of extremely high quality with extremely high technical depth, which is different than much of the other podcasts that are out there, which, at least in my opinion, are watered down. Now, there's nothing wrong with being watered down, especially if you want to get an overview of someone's theories. I watch them plenty. But paradoxically, for me, the more watered down it is, the more dry it is. And if you look at the comments on this channel, many of you agree, and it seems to indicate there's a huge craving. There's a huge craving for people interested in the recondite inner workings of a theory, and this isn't provided almost anywhere else.
This, I truly believe, is the art of anti-sanctimony. And yes, it is an art, because people are smarter than we've been told by contemporary culture, and figuring that out takes an artist's mind. Podcasts are bringing back the oral tradition that preceded and imbued modern science, but seem to have left our culture, at least since materialism became the salient philosophy of our times. I don't know if podcasts are revivifying the oral tradition like it used to be through folk tales, ballads, chants, or prose, but we certainly are living through something revolutionary taking place in the art of communication and information exchange. But hey, a part of me also thinks maybe most people think they're living through the most important times, and I'm just overthinking all of this. Anyways, if you're interested in how we lost the oral tradition, there's a great essay by Justin Smith where he discusses epistemology and ways of knowing. Links, of course, in the description. Some great examples of this revivification would be the recent conversations Jordan Peterson has been having in his podcast, and the theolocutions, as Curt would put it, we saw between John Vervaeke and Bernardo Castro. Now, I've listened to their conversations multiple times, and I understood these aren't mere dialectical processes with a predetermined goal. Rather, they're deeply engaging, where there's something beautiful and poetic as they work their way towards truth. Maybe similar to what great philosophers of the past aspired to bring out in their dialogues. There is something truly liberating to one's soul when we feel like we're seeing glimpses of the logos. Plus, at a more social level, on a psychometric note, the evidence of IQ suggests people are getting smarter. I'm not sure about wisdom, but at least it seems like we're getting more intelligent. This means there are more people now who are just ordinary individuals like me who are getting better at abstract and dialectical thinking, and naturally who may be attracted to science, philosophy, mythology, and religion, which results in more of an audience for discussions involving public intellectuals. However, saying all that, the more I thought about this, I began to get pessimistic. quote I recently heard from Michael Malice, and honestly, I cannot stop thinking about it. I hate being cynical, I really do, but the more I pondered on the quote-unquote podcasting revolution, specifically those like theories of everything, I realized this is going to create the unfortunate bifurcation. There currently is a cultural gap between those who get their information from the corporate media and those who get it from podcasts with a diversity of ideas and generally maverick thinkers. The corporate media or the establishment hasn't even got the ostensible semblance of the logos. There's no process of collectively working our way towards truth. There isn't even an underlying philosophy really. Just statements, banal and mostly patronizing statements. People are simply told what to think. And unlike Curt, those people in the corporate media behemoth are the paragons of sanctimony. So the division begins when these two groups of people, those that are in the antecedent world of corporate media and those that are in the world of podcast, have to live amongst each other. And we conspicuously see this bifurcation in polarized politics and COVID lockdowns to a more profound level in science, philosophy, and religion. None of these groups are better or worse than each other. This isn't a moral judgment, but they simply have completely different worldviews, which I don't even know are compatible but still have to be contrived to coexist. So that begs the question, what do we do there? I don't know, but despite my cynicism, I tend to give humanity the benefit of the doubt. Nevertheless, I do want to end this video on a less grimmer note, and I still do embrace the chaos, and I'm glad to be a part of this countercultural movement, let's say. And as Camus famously said, the struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Frankly, all of this is exciting, and I'm not being naively utopian here, but I know that truthful dialogue is always a remedy to a lot of the social ills we see in contemporary society. I mean, just in the last year, I've radically changed my mind on so many topics, and to be honest, it's a bit surreal. And I know I'm not the only one who's going through such change, thanks to the influence of podcasts like Theories of Everything. So to show my gratitude, if you could allow me to virtue signal a little bit, since I don't support Curt on Patreon, let me start off by buying his new movie.